They didn't scream. They didn't call out for attention. They didn't have to establish their worth by noise or arrogance. The Stoics walked through life wearing weapons that the average person never recognized. Yet those unseen weapons were sharper than any blade and more powerful than any army. And because of them, men such as Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, and Epictetus were able to suffer adversity, transcend turmoil, and leave us with a wisdom that still resonates today. In an age where triumph usually appears as mastery, riches, or applause, the Stoics found a different way, the way of unseen strength. But ask yourself this: how do you win battles you can't see? How do you conquer fear, randomness, and the turmoil of life? The Stoics knew. They didn't spend time worrying about what was beyond their control. They looked inward, and there, in that silence where nobody could get in the way, they constructed the tools that rendered them invincible. The first of these weapons was silence. In a world addicted to reaction, where every insult must be answered, and every opinion clamoring to be yelled into the wind, the Stoics understood that silence was power. Epictetus reminded his students that each word you utter is energy expended, and if you squander it on rage, gossip, or petty argument, you drain yourself. Silence is not weakness. It is restraint, and restraint is a weapon because it takes away from your opponent the one thing they love, their reaction from you. The next time someone tries to get a rise out of you, remember this: your silence steals their win. It keeps your mind untainted, your dignity unblemished, and your focus keen. The second weapon was perspective. There are moments in life that are just too much: betrayal, loss, humiliation. But Marcus Aurelius recorded in his diary, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." That is perspective. The power to retreat, to look beyond the bite of the moment, and to remind yourself that pain, as well, will pass. Envision a soldier on the field who frightens at the first warning of danger. He is lost. But the one who can breathe, see the entire field, and wait for the right time to strike, that soldier lives. Perspective does not eliminate struggle, but it reorients it. It helps you transform pain into endurance, setbacks into learning opportunities, and failure into development. The third weapon was self-discipline. The Stoics did not believe that living was a license to indulge. Seneca said, "It is not the man with little, but the man who desires more, who is poor." Discipline was their defense against the constant craving for pleasure, money, and comfort that masters so many. When you are in command of yourself, your appetites, your distractions, your impulses, you no longer exist as a slave to circumstance. The new world likes you weak, addicted to comfort and overstimulation. The Stoics understood that discipline is not punishment, it is liberty. For the man who masters himself may not be mastered by another yet. Their greatest subtlety was patience. To wait without grumbling, to suffer without resentment, to recognize that all things come in their season. This is strength. We live in an age of instant satisfaction, where procrastination seems like agony. But the Stoics found delay to be drill. Epictetus likened life to a festival. When food is being served, don't seize, don't dash. Wait, and when it is offered to you, accept it with thanksgiving. Patience unhooks frustration. It stills the worrisome heart. It shows you that not all that you want is for today, and certain things possibly are never for you at all. Each of these weapons, the silence, the vision, the discipline, the patience, works stealthily, nearly unseen. Together they forge something powerful. A man who is not rattled by offense, not broken by adversity, and not ruled by passion. And this was merely the start. The Stoics were equipped with more weapons, each tempered not of steel, but of knowledge. Consider if you had this weaponry today. Consider if you were able to step into mayhem and not be moved. If you could lose everything and still possess your inner fortress. What would others say of you? What would you say of yourself? The Stoics didn't merely survive life. They won. not through overpowering others, but through overpowering themselves. And in the quiet of that triumph, they found a power the world could never steal from them. There is a silent threat to life that no one ever sees. It is not the boisterous calamities or the glaring breakdowns. It is the quiet rotting of the soul that results from ignoring the simple virtues. The Stoics understood this, and so they developed yet another weapon: humility. Humility was their shield against conceit, against the urge to think they had conquered life when they were actually still students. Marcus Aurelius, the mighty ruler of the world, used to write himself each morning in the morning letter to remind him not to get swayed by vanity. "You may die tomorrow," he used to tell himself. "Do not spend your life seeking applause." This is humility, recognizing your own place in the scheme of things. When you keep in mind how infinitesimal you are in the perspective of time and the universe, other people's taunts are as light as feathers. Today's setbacks diminish in proportion. Humility keeps you safe from ego's poison. And ego, as history attests, is the ruin of even the strongest. The sixth weapon was clearness of values. The Stoics did not wander through life pursuing whatever seemed desirable at the moment. They had no doubt about what was important: virtue, wisdom, justice, courage, temperance. All else was secondary, Seneca wrote. If a man does not know to which port he sails, no wind is favorable. How many are today blown every which way, led by fads, diverted by superficial objectives? The Stoics honed their lives like a knife, cutting out the extraneous. That clear vision gave them strength, because a man who knows what he stands for cannot be moved. Once you define your values, every choice is easy. Does this advance my highest purpose or not? That is a sword that keeps you from throwing away your life. Then came resilience. The seventh sword. Resilience is not merely enduring suffering, but converting it. When Epictetus, a slave from birth, was beaten until his leg was broken, he merely remarked, "See, third warned you it would shatter." He did not curse his master. He did not succumb to despair. His body was bound, but his mind was free. That strength, the capacity to take each wound and use it as fuel. The Stoics likened life to wrestling. You don't step into the ring hoping to leave unscathed. You step into the ring hoping to get hit, but hoping to survive, to get up, to continue fighting. Resilience is born only in adversity, but once acquired, life has no weapon powerful enough to vanquish you. The eighth weapon was detachment from results. Picture doing everything right, working diligently, making wise choices, only for the world to turn against you. A storm ravages your crops. A betrayal ruins your trust. Death takes a loved one. The Stoics were familiar with those times, and they conditioned themselves to perform actions without holding on to the outcome. Do not try to make things happen the way you want them to happen, Epictetus advised, but rather want them to happen as they actually do happen, and your life will be well. Detachment is not sloth. It is liberation. You do your best, but you let go of the desire to control the world. And lo and behold, frustration dissipates. Anxiety melts away. The result might shatter your plans, but it can't shatter you. Last of all, there was the ninth weapon, gratitude. Not the superficial kind of gratitude that appears only when life is bountiful, but a richer gratitude, the kind that recognizes a blessing even in suffering. Marcus Aurelius thanked the gods, not just for his triumphs, but for his challenges. Because they fortified his character, he even thanked his enemies, because they pushed him to exercise patience and restraint. Gratitude was the Stoic manner of declaring triumph over bitterness. Where most individuals saw cause to grumble, the Stoics saw cause to grow. Gratitude turns every day into a lesson, every strife into strength, and every breath into a blessing. 9 weapons, 9 instruments of triumph. None of them needed money, prestige, or influence. All of them could be accessed by anyone who would discipline his mind. Silence, insight, discipline, tolerance, modesty, clarity, strength, detachment, and thanksgiving. Combined, they created a stronghold no foe could overcome. But this is the reality. These weapons are useless unless you decide to employ them. You will not be spared from responding in anger if you know of silence. You will not be held back from pursuing distractions if you know of discipline. Wisdom must be lived every day to be strength. The Stoics brought their weapons with them to each minute. At the table, in the market, on the battlefield, in the silence of their minds. That is why they were ready for life's punches while others fell apart. Consider your own life. Which of these weapons do you not have? Which do you have but not use? Each insult thrown against you, each challenge, each disappointment. That is your opportunity to draw your weapon and not battle with others, but with the weaknesses within yourself. That is the authentic Stoic struggle. The world doesn't need louder men. The world doesn't need angrier men. The world needs stronger men. And strength is always silent. The Stoics demonstrated that. And if you bear their arms, you can too. Walk through life unshaken, untouchable, undefeated. Imagine waking up in the morning. The world is already noisy before you've even left your bed. Notifications shout for your attention. News headlines inform you of what to be afraid of. People around you drag you into their drama, their chaos, their constant noise. And if you are not vigilant, you start the day already conquered. No, not by what you did, but by what you let into your mind. This is where the Stoics differed. They would start every day by preparing their weapons, sharpening them, and ensuring they were equipped to deal with the battles of life. Marcus Aurelius, prior to engaging in the challenges of being an emperor, would pen the following in his journal. Today you will encounter interference, ingratitude, insolence, disloyalty, ill will, and selfishness. All of them are unaware of good and evil. Why was he doing this? Because preparation is everything. He was honing his silence, his mindset, his toughness, before the world could take peace from him. Reflect on your mornings. Do you reach for your phone before reaching for your thoughts? Do you allow the mess of the world to dictate the tone for your day? If you do, you are going into battle unarmed. The Stoics caution, the way you start is the way you fight. Consider silence. For instance, in our age, silence is nearly extinct. If one remains quiet, people think that something is amiss. But the Stoics used silence as an art of mastery. Not everything needs a response. Not every debate requires your input. When you don't react, you are in control. Epictetus cautioned his pupils. If someone provokes you, remember that it is your judgment of the insult that harms you, not the words themselves. Now, when you are insulted on the internet, or someone in the office jeers at you, the silent weapon is easy. Don't give them what they're looking for. In that instant, you've already succeeded. Or take discipline. We're living in a time where comfort is idolized. You can get food delivered within minutes, entertainment streamed at once, validation received by likes and hearts. But this ease is a trap because it makes the mind weak. The Stoics accepted discomfort voluntarily. Ice baths, plain diet, rain walks, not because they disliked pleasure, but because they wanted to test themselves. I can take this. I am stronger than my circumstances. Imagine how powerful you become when you stop chasing what feels good and instead choose what makes you good. Patience is another silent weapon in modern life. Delay feels like death. Waiting in traffic, standing in line, saving money, working for years before success. These things drive people mad. But the Stoics understood that impatience is weakness. The impatient man is a slave of his passions. Marcus Aurelius said, "Time is like a river composed of events. Each one goes by, and another appears. If you go fast, you are swept away by the flow. If you remain stationary, you are carried away. Patience enables you to walk with time rather than opposing it. Reflect on how many errors you've committed by acting impulsively, and now consider how strong your life would be if you conditioned yourself to wait, to suffer, to trust the process." Humility is perhaps the most difficult weapon of them all, because it is opposite to human pride. The Stoics were aware that it is such a seductive thing, arrogance. It feels strong, but it is weakness. Why? Because arrogant individuals are consistently defending their image, consistently fearful of being shown to be wrong, constantly seeking validation. The Stoics, on the other hand, practiced humility even when they held great power. Marcus Aurelius, emperor of Rome, reminded himself daily, "You're just a man carrying around a corpse." Seneca, one of the wealthiest men of his time, practiced living with little to remind himself that fortune could vanish at any moment. Humility doesn't weaken you, it frees you. When you don't care about appearances anymore, you care about truth. When you don't care about applause anymore, you care about what is really important. Certainty of values is another tool that is lacking in contemporary life. Most people today live by what is good for the moment. They drift, they pursue, they chase after trends. But the Stoics lived by principle, not emotion. Epictetus would say, "Is this in my control? Is this in line with virtue?" If the response was no, he let it go easy. How many wasted years can you skirt if you know your values? Once you have your sense of direction, distractions are no longer magnetic. You no longer need the world's map. You have your own compass. And then there is resilience, the strength to endure suffering without cracking up. Look around, break, under criticism. One rejection kills them. One failure makes them give up. But the Stoics thought suffering was necessary training. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way, Marcus Aurelius wrote. Imagine how strong that is. Your hurdles are not roadblocks, but stepping stones. Every difficulty makes you stronger, if you want to think of it that way. Resilience is not about liking to suffer. It is about not allowing it to define you. The Stoics didn't leave it at that. Detachment was another weapon, one most people can't even conceive of using. We hold on to everything. Our stuff, our loved ones, our plans, our comfort. And when life takes it away, we shatter. The Stoics conditioned themselves to release even the things they loved most. Not because they didn't care, but because they knew the truth. Nothing is really ours. Everything is borrowed from fate. When you let go of the need for outcomes, you cease being a slave of what if. You start living in peace. And gratitude, the last weapon. In the modern world, gratitude is processed as a soft, feel-good activity. But to the Stoics, it was a war cry. It was their uprising against despair. Seneca might lose his riches and yet be able to proclaim, "What I have is enough." Marcus Aurelius might experience betrayal and still be grateful to the universe for the opportunity to practice forgiveness. Gratitude is strength because it enables you to notice victory even when defeated. The man who is grateful can never be stripped of all. And here we are, centuries on, engaged in battles of different shape, but the same character. Insults, temptations, disappointments, fears. You cannot escape them. But you can select your weapons. You can hone silence. You can maintain perspective. You can train in discipline, patience, humility. You can live with clarity, resilience, detachment, and gratitude. These are not weapons that make life simple. They make you resilient and strength. Not comfort, not applause, not power, is what the Stoics prized above all else. Imagine Marcus Aurelius in his tent, amidst a grim winter campaign along the Danube. He was emperor, to be sure, but also a human being immersed in adversity, betrayal, and perpetual warfare. Every day, soldiers grumbled about the freezing temperatures, the scarcity of food, the seemingly infinite carnage, and Marcus sat with a diminutive oil lamp, penning away in his journal, honing his invisible weapons. He reminded himself of the pain that is a part of life, that fame is nothing, that death was always near, and he reminded himself to confront every barrier with virtue. This was not weakness. This was training in strength. Or consider Epictetus, born a slave, beaten until his leg was permanently injured. He had no money, no position, and yet he wielded more power than his masters. Why? Because his weapons were not visible. They could bind his body, but not his spirit. Epictetus employed silence to survive brutality. He employed perspective to look beyond his agony. He employed resilience to transform his suffering into lessons. And centuries afterward, his words continue to equip those who read them. No man is free who is not master of himself. Seneca, too, demonstrates these weapons in action. He lived in opulence, politics, temptation, and power all around him, and yet he always practiced detachment and humility. He reminded himself that riches could disappear overnight. He practiced poverty by eating simple food and dressing in coarse garments, even though he had riches at his beck and call. Why? Because he wanted to convince himself that he didn't rely on good fortune. That is detachment in action. A fellow like that cannot be purchased, cannot be broken. Now put this into perspective with the world today. How many today fall apart over minor adversity? An off day at work devastates them. A harsh word on social media shatters their self-esteem. A minor setback enrages them. The fact is, we all march through life unarmed. We engage in combat with no weapons, and then grumble about why we continually lose. Picture, if you will, instead being armed with Stoic tools in everyday life. Silence. When the coworker insults you, and rather than responding, you allow your tranquility to unnerve them. Discipline. When the urge to endlessly scroll surfaces, but you decide to focus on your craft instead. Patience. When traffic holds you up, and rather than anger, you inhale and wait. Humility. When you win, but instead of bragging, you continue to learn. Clarity of values. If you are stuck with a tough choice, you immediately know what is right for your principles and what is not. Resilience. If failure pushes you down, you get up stronger than ever. Detachment. If your plans get ruined, but you are not shaken because you understand that your peace never relied on results. Gratitude. If life offers you little, and you still appreciate abundance. These are not abstractions. These are weapons you can wield today. And unlike money or property, no one can take them away from you. That is why the Stoics were unbreakable. Not because they evaded pain, but because they equipped themselves to confront it. But let's get deeper. Why are these weapons so potent? Because they combat the true enemy. The one within you, your rage, your terror, your lust, your pride, wars, catastrophes, betrayals. These are all outside. What really kills a man is his inability to master himself. The Stoics knew this. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Imagine this. The world will forever be throwing stones at you. But the Stoics had shields that made them invincible. Silence fended off insults. Perspective redrew pain. Discipline overcame temptation. Patience tolerated delay. Humility crushed pride. Clarity directed decisions. Resilience soaked up suffering. Detachment liberated them from fear, and gratitude took every loss and made it a gift. So now I want you to ask yourself, what would your life be like if you were proficient in even 2 or 3 of these weapons? How much more at peace? How much more powerful? How much closer to unshakable? And here's the thing. You don't have to master all 9 simultaneously. You just have to begin. The Stoics didn't wake up invincible. They practiced daily, regularly failing, but always coming back to the track. And that is the lesson to us. In a shortcut world, the Stoics remind us, strength is cultivated, not purchased. Swords are honed with use. Every jab you receive, every failure, every letdown, that is your training ground. The foe isn't life. The foe is your weakness. And the Stoic path is to battle it. In silence, every day. So let's put it all together. 9 silent weapons, hammered in the crucible of ages, born by men who understood pain, power, and loss more profoundly than most of us will ever know. Silence. The armor that protects you from being controlled by anger and sound. Discipline. The sword that slices through sloth and apologies. Patience. the shield that enables you to withstand time without shattering. Humility, the reminder that ego is the heaviest chain you will ever wear. Clarity of values, the compass that keeps you walking the right path. Resilience, the ability to fall and rise stronger than before. Detachment, the art of holding the world without clinging to it. Gratitude, the hidden lens that transforms scarcity into abundance. And perspective, the greatest of all weapons, the one that enables you to see clearly, to shrink problems down to their true size. 9 weapons, silent, unseen, but sharper than steel. The Stoics did not win at life by pursuing pleasure or shunning adversity. They prevailed because they conquered themselves. Marcus Aurelius was an emperor, but wrote nightly memos not to let being in power corrupt him. Epictetus existed as a crippled slave, but commanded more power than kings. Seneca surfed in wealth, yet practiced poverty so as not to be a slave to desire. Various lives, various struggles, but the same arsenal. And that's the challenge for you. Because here's the truth. The modern world will not stop testing you. Comfort will keep trying to weaken you. Distractions will try to steal your focus. Fear will whisper in your ear. Pride will tempt you. Pain will come, again and again. But you don't have to meet it naked. You can enter the same tradition that supported the Stoics through wars, exile, slavery, and death itself. You can hone these quiet weapons, one decision at a time. When someone insults you, practice silence. When temptation tugs at you, select discipline. When life puts off your plans, retain patience. When success tempts your pride, return to humility. When confusion besets you, seek clarity. When failure hits, invoke resilience. When fortune betrays you, accept detachment. When little is given, be grateful. And when chaos is around you, keep perspective. This is how you succeed in life, not by dominating the world, but by conquering yourself. So the next time life throws you into turmoil, keep this in mind. Your strongest power isn't in your situations, it is in your weapons. Sharpen them, carry them, live them. Because the Stoics didn't leave us empty philosophies. They left us an arsenal, and now it belongs to you. The question is, will you use it?